Hello and welcome to the Second Row podcast. My name is Park O'Kelly, aka the Second Row. We're here to talk about all things Connacht and Irish rugby, especially in the URC this week. And with me, as always, is Will Foley. How are you, Will? How are you getting on?
I'm not too bad. I think a little bit more refreshed than you are at the moment, having been away for a couple of days on a little break. So here to bring a little bit of energy if you're feeling a little bit tired on a Sunday evening.
I am tired. I drove up and down to Connemara this weekend. So if I am saying things backwards, that is what is going on. um, but let's get stuck into the rugby news. I think the biggest headline really from a Connacht point of view was Jack Carty retiring. We all had a sense this was going to happen, to be honest. I've been putting thoughts on it together throughout the week. It's such a great career. His stats speak for themselves. Connacht's leading top scorer, point scorer. I don't think that's going to be beat anytime soon. Just one of those fundamental players to Connacht's club. Someone from Buccaneer, someone from the area, one club man, all those things that you love to see. And for me personally, he's a player who's been undervalued by Connacht supporters, Irish supporters, people in general over his career. And I think now he's retiring, people have kind of gone, oh, wait, we really liked him. He's actually much better. His skill set was incredible. He's kicking stats for someone like Galway, superb. It's just kind of, he's that type of player that every club wants to have. And he has been such a great servant to the club. I hope his retirement treats him so well. His many businesses rocket and he has a great life afterwards, and all that type of stuff. But man, like genuinely, even though I felt it coming, I was kind of gutted this week to actually see him announce his retirement officially.
Yeah, he's a huge loss for Connacht, I think, but on the field, off the field as well, right? I think that kind of, as you say, that kind of soul of the club kind of person really comes true, and his deep abiding love for the club is very evident in that sense. Like it's a huge loss, and I think like obviously a lot of people outside of Connacht probably most associate him with the poor 2019 World Cup cycle.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and that was my point, right? That's where I was going with it. Of like, I think he unfairly took a lot of blame for something that absolutely wasn't his fault by any stretch of the imagination. It was a team that was struggling, and I think people now, you don't really hear Jack Carty's name brought up as like the reason. It was certainly in the immediate aftermath. I think you heard it more nowadays. It does tend to be like, no, that Ireland team wasn't performing, and I think he it's one of those things that I always think is interesting. I think were he coming up now, he would probably get more play in an Ireland team.
Definitely. I think,
the way Ireland play today definitely suits his skill set an awful lot more. I understand why he's not getting those call-ups, because again, he was coming to the end of his career in the last kind of 3 to 4 years. And, you're looking for the next generation, not that generation. But it's a pity he never got more opportunity at that level, because I do think he had that in him, and I think it would have been great to see him get that development as well that comes with playing at an international test level. But like regardless, a fantastic career, a hard man to replace in Connacht, I think as well. Like it'll be
just as a personality, like he's loved in the club. Everyone's come out this week, and you can see former players, everyone, how much like who've said such great things about him. It's not just what he brought on the pitch. He was a presence off the pitch and a gent to fans and supporters as they walk through the sports ground or anything. Like literally the man suffered so much abuse from his own, and I'm going to be a bit annoyed, I'm going to piss some people off to see someone going to go, oh Jack, like I was so annoyed to see these people who were like would chuck him under a bus faster than anything else now, like say, oh Jack, we love you, we miss you. I'm like, no, you never back the man. Like, and that's the problem. And it's because he's a 10, there's so much pressure is heaped on him, and I don't think he was ever given leeway by Connacht fans because everyone wanted to be perfect straight away, and that's never going to happen. And like we've seen that across multiple players in multiple positions every week in, week out, and like everyone strives. Fans want this impossible dream from players, and he really took a lot of that on, which I felt was so unfair. I'm glad that he's going out on his terms, uninjured. He gets to play out the season. And like I said online, I hope he gets a silverware send-off. I think he deserves one of two trophies that Connacht are possibly available to fight for this year. And if he gets one, brilliant, and who knows which one it is. There's two very hard roads ahead, but they are there ahead for this Connacht team.
Yeah, and I wouldn't underestimate the emotional lift something like this can give a team to push them on for silverware as well, right? There'll be a lot of players, a lot of coaches that want to also give him that send off and stuff. So I think, we've talked, I've certainly talked, on this podcast this year about the gap that players like him leave in teams, right? We've seen it in Leinster with Johnny Sexton going. We've seen it in Munster with Peter O'Mahony going. I hope we don't see too much of it with Jack Carty, not for Jack Carty's sake, but just for Connacht's sake. But there's no doubt there will be a gap caused by him going, right? Other players will need to step up and take on bigger roles and take on that leadership position and stuff like that, and be those kind of elder statesmen and again that kind of soul and heart. I think those players are there. And we are seeing it. We're seeing leadership in other places on the pitch as well.
We're seeing that evolution week on week with players like stepping up to the mark. Yeah. And I think we saw. We'll get to the match in a bit, but we saw when those other leaders aren't there, what can happen to this team. It's not about individual performance; things about leadership. But we'll get to that kind of general rugby. We'll get to that match in a bit. I want to go on a rant about one thing: the Celtic Challenge. The Celtic Challenge final was on this weekend. It is the women's tour, like URC Celtic League. It's the preamble to Ireland actually having 4 provinces. It's building its way there. The final was in Edinburgh. 2 Irish teams. The fact they want a destination final, like what you see in the URC. I'm like, that's fine in the old days, but there's a reason even today we go to the winner of the highest seed, like so fans can get there, especially what is a smaller competition. Like, give as many fans a chance to get to the final as possible. And my other rant about this is the IRFU. This segment right now will be more talking about the Celtic Challenge than the IRFU have done its full tournament.
Yeah.
It hasn't been promoted. It hasn't been pushed. And that's what bugs me about it. For what is effectively the training ground, the proving ground for the Irish women's national team, for the IRFU not to point anything towards it is so frustrating, especially on a week where they release this new women's AIL format, which by all accounts isn't going down the best across the way. And it feels like something simple of just having Instagram, Facebook and X and Blue Sky posts about these things would be very simple and effective and nice to just have, but obviously they haven't done that once again. The sooner these teams are in the 4 provinces and in that social media bubble, at least they can get advertised, and some of the issues of Dublin players training down in Limerick can go away quickly, because if you have a contract to play for Munster, you're living in Limerick or you're living in Cork. Same for Connacht, same for Ulster, same for Leinster. A makey-uppy team to keep you contracted. You have people like living in Dublin training in Limerick because that's where the team is based, because they don't know how long this team's going to exist. It's all that, like, it's the teething problems of creating a new thing, but the new thing needs to happen a lot quicker, so the teething problems aren't as big. Sorry, that's my rant, and we can move on.
No, fair, right? And like, no, certainly no arguments in any of those points. And I think there's often as well, I think, like this thing that happens, and it's not, I don't think it's unique to Irish rugby or rugby in general or sport in general, of kind of that, well, it needs to be successful and then we'll invest in it.
Yeah.
Rather than it being like, well, you make it successful by investing in it, right? Like, you will put a lot of effort and time into a thing before it becomes successful, right? That kind of concept of the overnight success is obviously like a joke, because it, like, even in cinema, like, with actors or with anybody, they always, people always talk about the 10-year overnight success, right? Like, you have to put years and years into a thing before people start, so before it kind of breaks through or becomes noticeable or whatever. And you're right. I think some of this is probably the falling between stools kind of problem of, it's not quite the national team, it's not the provinces. So like, probably who owns it, who's responsible for it, is there somebody assigned in the IRFU to do all this kind of stuff?
And it's that whole thing, because
it's all that kind of stuff. Like,
because it's a national team pathway, should be part of the national team because
Agreed.
of the provinces.
Yeah.
But just we'll move on because I'm not going to actually. It'll be very, very annoying. Wolfhounds beat the Clovers 50-29. Like there was a winner. The Wolfhounds have won this competition 3 times in a row. The sooner that talent spread gets spread a bit thinner, so we can have more female players playing to that standard, or having quality coaching week in, week out, living and playing where they're from, the better. It's just 2-3 years time, I think, remember from reading some report at some point, but I will link this in the highlights to one of my many, many social outposts to that match and have a look. It was a good game. I saw some of the tries, all names you'll recognize from watching the Irish women's team. Go watch it. There's good quality rugby there. And let's move on to the next piece of news.
They're keeping the fun train rolling before we get into the games. Munster announced voluntary redundancies this week. Obviously not a thing anybody wants, right? Like, so we're not here to harp on Munster too heavily, right?
This is on pitch Munster. This isn't coaching. This isn't a lot of these things. This is other stuff, really.
And I think as well, like I've we were talking about this just before we started recording, right? Like, you're self-employed, so redundancies are not a thing you've ever experienced. I've experienced it, like anybody who's worked in a company, multiple times. I've been on the receiving end of it once or twice myself in my career, but I've also been the people left behind as well, right? Like when we've had redundancies and watched colleagues leave and stuff like that. I've also been some of the people in the room making some of the decisions about, like, we have to make redundancies and, like, who do we cut, right? And all of those are horrible. I like, obviously big corporations, it's different, but like in smaller, like I've worked for smaller companies where they've lost a major contract and as a result, they need to cut 10% of the headcount or 20% of the headcount because they just don't have the work anymore.
Yeah.
And like watched owners of those companies that are employing maybe 200 or 300 people, like crying in their offices, trying to make these decisions because they know it impacts families and it impacts people in their area. I can't speak. I don't know the Munster higher ups. I don't know any of that, but like, it is not a huge organization, right? It's not like a big tech company kind of situation or anything like that, right? It is going to be a smaller, more focused organization. Nobody makes these decisions easily from that point of view. And like, the focus rightly should be on the individuals who will take the redundancy and the voluntary redundancies and stuff like that. It's a small industry that these people work in. So finding alternative work is always going to be hard as well. Like, skills are not always transferable, particularly in the area they live, right? What other professional sports setups are there in Munster, in Limerick, in Cork? There aren't any, right? Like, there's Munster Rugby and that's it. In terms of the professional teams, like, there's no professional soccer teams, there's no professional GA teams, there's no Olympic setup down there to speak of in that sense. Like, it's quite limited in terms of what these people have to do to stay in the industry of professional sport and high-end sport. So that's all very unfortunate. Like, unfortunately, like, this is the effect of poor performance, right, on the pitch ultimately. And what I mean by that is not to put that on the players, but what I mean to be like, you will often hear coaches and different people talking about it being a results-driven business, and that, like, it is ultimately a business. They're not going to come out right and say it, but the fact that Munster missed out on the Champions Cup, missed out on knockout stages, and in particular home games and knockout stages, those ticket sales have an impact, right? And this is where that's coming from largely, is that living on the edge a little bit too much. The IRFU have talked about it quite a bit, about, like, to a certain degree, how a bad season can really put you in a bad way. And again, when you're in those delicate situations, it's no different than people who are living paycheck to paycheck. It can spiral out of control pretty quickly. Hopefully this isn't something that will have, it won't move into involuntary redundancies for Munster, but they've made pains to be like, this doesn't affect the senior team and it doesn't affect coaches and it doesn't affect players. I doubt that, right?
I think even mentally it does, because there's like it could be even say the physios and all them are exempt, like, we'll just call it, there's a base level of people that are exempt. The person who makes your lunch, who you've known for the last 5 years and there on a Monday morning, it's like kind of auxiliary staff of the person you always bump into and say hi and always ask how how your dad was, and you'd always ask how the kids were. And there's those small little conversations. They're the heart of especially in a sporting organization, where you're kind of going, when you're detached from the fans, because you have to be, because it's professional sports, those workers around you who have families, who care about the competition, care about the team, care about its successes, and feel it just as much as you do, they're what ground you in the locality, especially when you represent a province like Munster do. And the fact that some of them will be missing on that weekly, day to day, will impact players. The fact they know someone they know and like might be gone tomorrow will impact the players. It's just human nature. I think I hear what you're saying about Munster's results not doing well. I know they even mentioned that themselves, that not making those things is a part of it. Like, personally, you kind of look at it and kind of go, they have two professional setups, one in Cork, one in Limerick. They have a high, it feels like this is something that was created at the dawn of professionalism, very much like what's gone on in Wales. Stuff to trying to keep two bases happy, it is quite impossible. And that this is kind of one of the, by trying to manage something that awkward, and the fact there isn't a motorway between Limerick and Cork, which would have made the whole thing a whole lot easier anyway, because that would have been an hour drive, not the 5 it takes otherwise, is one of those things that they're trying to control something they don't have control over, by making so many people so happy up and down the province. It's the main population centre is in Cork. The main Limerick the rugby centre at the time was in Limerick. That's now drifting back towards Cork again, but you're not going to move from Thomond anytime soon. It's just so hard on them all. You just got to feel for the organization, because they're people, like, as much as we said, like, was it last week we're talking about player contracts? I don't really like talk about rumors because they're people's jobs. These are real people. Like, rugby players can fall on their feet a bit easier because they have a profile they can carry into something. Someone, and
a back office person doing administration, like,
might find it a bit harder. So it's so tough on all of them, and I genuinely do hope that Munster can sort this out, because a province falling like this just causes pressure on the others. It's not that they're quite isolated in terms of how they're run, so it's not like this is a contagion, but there will be pressure put on squads, and we've seen that. So squads have to be limited. The RFU aren't taking up as much of the central contract limit. Like, there is a financial reality in rugby at the moment, and living within your coffers is getting harder and harder and harder. Some rugby reasons, Munster haven't been able to just keep that going. I'm not even being facetious. A few more concerts in Thomond might be really necessary, and using Cork in other ways and renting out. Just is it getting the naming rights of Thomond done to get that extra money in, like Connacht with a Dexcom. It's things like that. I know they've tried to do it in the past, but there has been some pushback. These things, if that sponsorship had gone through, maybe this doesn't happen. It's all that type of stuff that you're kind of going, there's a high up management issue that I know Munster fans have been quite annoyed about for a while.
Yeah.
And let's hope that sorts itself out, so the team can get better quicker, and hopefully get back to a place where it has all the staff it needs to go and function.
Yeah, I think it's all interrelated is the short answer, right? Like, I think the performances on the pitch are an impact of the organizational management as well, right? Like, massively so. We see this in other teams and other places as well, in other sports. Ask any Man United fan about the last 15 years of their team and its decline, right? And they will quite happily tell you it is the corporate management is more than it is the on-field players that they feel is truly to blame, and the structure and that kind of like devotion to traditionalism or kind of out of date approaches because we have some divine right because we are who we are. To be able to win and to be able to do things in a certain way. And as you say, the kind of two centers problem. And in particular, I think, if Thomond was in Cork, they would have been out of Limerick 10 years ago, right? It would have been all in Cork now at this stage, quite evidently. That's going to be a struggle for them because Cork is the main population centre. It does make more sense from that perspective to base themselves in Cork, but their stadium is in Limerick, their tradition is in Limerick, so they want to keep with Limerick.
But even the training facilities are in Limerick. They're using UL. It's all Limerick based, and then they have a high performance centre for the academy in Cork. It's one of those things where they've let too many management folk have let themselves be pulled from pillar to post. There's no easy answer. We're not saying that we don't know. I don't know enough about Munster to kind of really have an in-depth response to how, not to fix it, but where the issue's from. Everyone has that idea, and my one is that this. I always feel like this is not coming down the line, but that pull between Cork and Limerick was always going to cause issues.
And has in the past, right? Like we've known that that's caused issues in the past for players traveling, even never mind anything else. So it's it's a challenge, right? Like I think a way to think about this as well, just maybe put it in terms, right? Like some of the reporting this week, right, is that Munster was understood to kind of suffered around €1 million in losses last season in terms of not getting home knockout games in the URC or in the Champions Cup, right? So in those knockout stages, they didn't get any home games. €1 million, that is easily 10 to 15 staff, right? When you what you do, what's called fully loaded cost for the staff, not just their salary, but the tax that needs to be paid for them and facilities and the desks that they need to sit at and all that kind of jazz, right? They have given no indication of the numbers of voluntary redundancies, right? Could be 10 to 15 people, could be more. But that's 10 to 15 people. That's a lot of jobs in an organization of, a few 100,000 people kind of thing, right? In that sense. So it's not insignificant when that does. And all this does, I think, is mount more pressure on the players to feel the need to perform, which is not what they need in this moment. They need to be able to focus on their game plan and not be thinking about, oh, my buddy's going to lose his job if I don't win this game. If we don't get top 4 of the URC, if we don't do this, we don't do that. We might have more redundancies, we might have more stuff. But look, I think we talked about it enough. It's crappy. Nobody wants this.
No.
I hope it is a one-off for Munster, and it's just a kind of right-sizing correction kind of situation, and not something that we see next year or we see big impacts from and stuff like that. But it would be hard not to have impacts on it. So let's see how it goes. And obviously, the main concern is the people who are going to be losing their job, and hopefully they'll find employment easily enough, and won't have too many hard feelings about it. Continue to be Munster fans afterwards.
Yes, we'll get into the URC action and start where we always start, the Connacht games, the fellas in green. Yes. And Connacht 21, Ospreys 14. So Connacht come into this game looking for their 5th win in a row, first time since April 2023 was the stat I remember being bandied around. And they started really well, playing into that horrendous wind.
Yeah.
And they started really well. They controlled how the game was being played, moved up the pitch like you would expect someone playing into the wind would do. And after 10 minutes, had that first try scored, you're kind of going, all right, we're on a nice bit of a roll here, starting to work well. But there's something about Connacht that was just always this is a bit relaxed. And that's where the opportunity for the Ospreys' first try come from. It's all a bit relaxed and a bit not sharp as it needs to be. And even for me, at one point in this area here, Connacht had to bring on Jack Carty really early in the 6-2 split, and suddenly you're kind of going, all right, we have even less options now if something goes wrong across this game. And I was explaining those to someone I was watching with, Connacht had 4 10s on that pitch in effect. You have Ione, who's a 10, at one point Carty, who's a 10, Sean Naughton, who's a 10 turned 15, and Carl Ford, who's a 13 from who was a 10. Yeah. These are all people who know how to control a game, who've played matches in Galway and did very well. But sometimes the way, and these are all people who've played in Galway and they know what was on the line here. I think once they scored that try, they thought this was going to be a business as usual we can kind of just do what we do match. But Ospreys, like they were fighting for a spot in the top 8 themselves, you know, like they came and fought. I think Jack Morgan had a stupendous game. Like he just showed his international quality.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant, like, which is great. And I think the other Morgan as well had a very good game for Ospreys. But I think Connacht overall were just a bit too relaxed. I think for me, like there was a period before half time where we held Ospreys out.
Yeah.
And it was really good. Like it was really good defensive work. But if you look at what brought us there, it was like compound errors. It's like after the first Ospreys try, which all came from Connacht being too relaxed anyway. But after that try, there's a high tackle penalty. We turn over the ball, and then at their line out, then we get turned over for another penalty. We get done for another penalty for an early drive. Then we're offside, and that's all in 5 minutes, just before halftime. You know, we fundamentally hold them out anyway. I think those 2 scrum penalties in there as well, just to really add it to the mix. So we're on a general team penalty warning. Then we're on a second penalty warning, a penalty warning for the scrum after that, after 2 scrum penalties. And then to hold the Ospreys out after that, I think that is massive. That is just a huge amount of work rate to put in. But the fact that we were there at all is pure Connacht compound errors. It's really annoying how sloppy some of that looked in that first half.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think when they scored that try, it was like, okay, we'll crack on from here now. It was kind of the vibe, and you know, they did, even when Ospreys got over for their try, they didn't, like, Connacht sort of still didn't look too bothered, right, which was dangerous, and sort of looked like they felt they were going to win the game, and were definitely loose in places. Like I think the holding the people out is always a good sign, right? Like it's probably a good wake up call from that perspective. I think Connacht were lucky not that try, you know, the Jack Morgan pass that was called a forward pass.
It was a forward pass. It came out of the hands forward.
I think from the angle they showed, sure, but I don't know on some of the other angles, right? Like it's
more how, like, I know.
No, the ball traveled forward, but that's not the point, right? Like that's just inertia. That's physics. But
the passer's hands led forward as well. Like they do look at the passer's hands. His hands, if his hands led backwards and the ball moved forward,
doesn't matter. It would be fine.
Given. He literally went out of the hands forward. Like that's what the ref said. So
no, I know that's what the ref said. I'm not as convinced that it was exactly that his hands were forward in the pass. But look, it was what it was. But that's my point is more. That's a ref decision going your way. It's not because Connacht did anything to stop the try, right? Like it was a mistake by Ospreys. Otherwise, a guaranteed try.
Definitely, and that came from
so Connacht got lucky in that moment.
And that came from that sloppy alignment and poor kick chase, which I've been kind of bemoaning for weeks. How poor the Connacht kick chase can be. You know, I'm not going to bemoan it again, but and that's where it came from. Like that poor kick chase, poor selection, just 2 passes, and Ospreys were able to find that hole. Like Bundy was kind of a bit further out, but Connacht had to be tight, and he was in his normal position, hadn't readjusted. But that comes from something that happened 15 meters ago and a different option. And like you're kind of going, okay, grand, we've survived that. That's a wake up call. 7-7, get into the half, cut out the mistakes, cut out the penalties, and we come back. Seamus Harry-Langton gets the second try of the day, which, you know, he had a great return from injury, by the way. You know, he's been out for ages, and he was Sean Jansen before Sean Jansen was here. You know, he was.
Yeah, he showed no match rustiness. Like he just was straight back in. Like
carrying really hard, brought tons of physicality. Great, like really good work by him to get that try back on top of what was happened beforehand. But once Darren Murray, who had a good game, got the yellow card for the team yellow, like literally first time Ospreys got into 22, first penalty, ref went, I warned you in the previous half, off you go. It was just kind of, it almost took then for them to wake up, you know?
Yeah.
And that defensive set with 14 was massive, absolutely massive.
Yeah, they managed that period well. Like obviously they conceded a try during it, but like based on the performance up until that point, the fact that they did sort of wake up and manage that and the defensive effort there and only conceded one try was a really good sign, right? And like they definitely pushed on from there.
They
But
didn't.
look,
They didn't.
yeah,
Like it's sorry. It was they didn't. Like I thought there was still too many unforced errors in Connacht's game. Like in general, they seem to be forcing too much. As if it's that whole thing of they tried to get the bonus point before they'd won the match a few too many times. And what worried me a small bit is, and yeah, and like you're kind of like you're trying to replace Cian Prendergast and Sean Jansen around the bench. The bench didn't really bring a lot of physical impact. You know, Sammy and Billy Bowen actually did, but for me, across the second rows and back row replacements, there was that kind of missing impetus or something. I don't know. I don't have to describe it properly, but they weren't really making holes in the Ospreys defense, and Ospreys are very good at making a messier breakdown, and they did that, and they slowed ball down. And you have to be really, really on your game against Ospreys to not get involved in that type of slow groundhoggy game. And our back row didn't do enough to, especially in that last 20 minutes when they were all on, to help drive that on.
Yeah, for most of the Welsh teams at the moment, like you just need to not let them drag you into an arm wrestle, like and into a messy game and play wide. So, in fairness, I think that like the kind of pushing it wide and stuff like that, and trying to force it was, I think, the counter they were going for that, right? Of like we need to spread this out. We need to throw it a little bit harder to disrupt that element of the game. Now, I would agree with you in the sense of a little bit of a better kicking game would have also taken some of that pressure off. Right now, the wind was a huge factor in the kicking. There's no doubt about that.
I wondered that kick from Jack that just rolled dead kind of just went and just put half so a doubt in their mind. Yeah, it was just one bounce. I was there screaming at he stop.
And it was just like that. You could see he just put a tiny bit too much welly on it, and then the wind took it, and then just gave it enough momentum to carry it over the line. I just felt
that stop kind of kicking deep. And in that type of wind, you really need to like make Ospreys play from their 22, not their 10-meter line. And they were able to like play from the 10-meter line way too often and get to the 10-meter line way too easily.
With that said, I still think Connacht managed the wind better than Ospreys just because of virtue of they're more familiar with it, right? Like it's in Galway. It was definitely a Galway game in terms of that sense of the wind. And, there was a few times, particularly in the second half, Ospreys playing into the wind, some of the restarts and stuff like that. And it was just that, I think, moment of not brain deadness, but just sort of forgetting that, oh no, I'm putting this into a wind, not into a breeze.
It's that restart after the Nachten try. You're there going, we can chase for a bonus point here. And it goes up, it gets caught back. I turned around, I wrote it down. The crowd is the 16th man in Galway. The wind is the 17th. So, it's if you're not used to it, you're in trouble. Simple as. And it's like, I go back to the Nachten try before I kind of talk about the end game, because he had a really good game. Matt Devine came on and really played well when he came on.
Yeah.
Devine actually even talk about him, and he is moving to Ulster. Like Lancaster came out and said they really want to keep him. Like they genuinely worked really hard to keep Devine. That was in, if you looked at any of the reports from Lancaster, at post match, I didn't hear. I read interviews. I didn't look for anyone's match report. I don't like being swayed between a match and here. But they Connacht wanted to keep Devine, and it's such a shame that he's going to be at Ulster for next season. He hasn't been playing enough for Connacht over the last couple of years, and he saw a 3-year contract and going, as I going to get more of the same by the feel of it,
Yeah. I think it's like, I understand why he's going. I can't blame him for going based on the game time he's gotten and stuff. But he showed the class of player he was when he came on for Connacht, definitely, and really realistically was the difference maker in Connacht winning that match. Definitely. There's no doubt about that. I know
his tap and goal that got Jack Morgan sin bin. He brought tempo and pace. And if you're against a team who want to slow you down, bringing tempo and pace is the way to go. And Ospreys were really in trouble defensively when that tempo creeped up, and it was really annoying that we didn't get the bonus point try before that that final stanza. Like
I agree, right? Like there was plenty of opportunity, and if they'd played a little bit more intensely throughout the game, I think they would have gotten the bonus point.
But it's not even that. I think
easily
there was a scrum, that scrum from the kick that went backwards. Ione makes a line break. That scrum, like, and he kind of like stops because wait, he genuinely, you can see him go, I was meant to be tackled. You know,
somebody was supposed to stop me.
Somebody was meant to stop me, surely, you know. And he stops where I think this time last year, or at the beginning of the season, he just keeps on going. Suddenly he stopped somewhere between the 22 and the 5 meter, you know, inside the 22, not outside the 22, and possibly Ospreys are caught offside. You know, it's that kind of whole. He genuinely looks like he stopped. He's like, oh wait, I was meant to be tackled. But you know, this set play had me being tackled here, so we can do this and this. You know, he was almost overly focused on the set play more than
what they were running. Like
and then there was a line out 2 minutes later where the ball's given to Bundy, who had a really good game. But once again, we've kind of said it before about some lineouts. Like, you're getting good lineout, but Bundy has to reach backwards for the ball. It's just on his inside shoulder. He's got to check his run a small bit, and that just stops the momentum. And suddenly Ospreys are up and defending, and you're kind of going 2 phases later. We're still not getting through anywhere here, and it was that type of slight inaccuracy at times that just caused Connacht not to get a bonus point before. All right, let's get into it. That you're on the 22. Cox in the red. Sean O'Brien.
You have the ball. You're in good position.
You're on, and Sean O'Brien goes, no, we're not doing 10 minutes of this, and kicks the ball out.
Strange decision, I think.
So there's 2 things I've heard. That one, he'd heard there was advantage, but he must have thought it was a penalty advantage.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, that's just really bad luck for him, you know?
Yeah.
Like you've missed the words knock on before advantage in your
I thought there was advantage when I was watching it as well. I thought the ref had put his arm out for full advantage, not for knock on advantage.
Yeah.
Now it was a good deal further back, but I was like, look, take the advantage, kick for a line out, you know, get the territory. You've got the wind. You can definitely get good distance on this kick and probably get inside the 10. Because
when the advantage came, like, the clock wasn't in the red, so I would have taken a scrum there, you know, because the scrum had a little bit of dominance at that stage, and I don't know.
It feels like a game management mistake to me, right? Like, because I just think the field position you're in. Like, Ospreys were tiring as well, right? Like, was the other factor here as well. You could see it in them. They were tired. They had kind of coughed up the ball pretty easily from 2 Connacht earlier.
And Morgan being off really hit them hard. Like, genuinely, he was worth 3 players. Like 100%. And him not being on the pitch and his engine he was doing a job of 3 people out there for Ospreys, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
So with him gone, they were even more raggedy than they would have been anyway.
Exactly. And I think even if you didn't have advantage, like, let's leave that aside. Let's assume he knew they didn't have advantage, or it was only that it was a knock-on advantage. And it was just like, no, we're going to end the game, take our 4 points. That's important. Do we get the 4 points kind of thing? I feel just going through the phases probably would have forced a penalty from given the tiredness of Ospreys.
Yeah.
Just like I don't feel you would have had to done too much. Like, obviously you wouldn't have just done pure one-up runner kind of stuff, but I think like throwing 1 or 2 passes, maybe, like, you know, you're probably going to get them to knock it on and give you the scrum, or that they're going to come in from the side, or, you know what I mean? There was going to be something that they were going to cough up to you that would have given you just that bit more field position and get you in position to maybe score the try. Rather than just kicking out. It was just a strange call, I feel.
I've gone over and back on it in my head twice. Like, genuinely, I've gone over and back on it twice. Let's say they called it and they went, you know what? We're not playing well enough to get this over from here without a penalty. You know, we haven't been, when we're not playing great. The interview with Paul Boyle afterwards and James Harry-Langton, they both said, great win, but we weren't good. You know, like, they put their hands up, going like, we won playing badly. You know, we weren't nowhere. If we played like, effectively saying, if we played like we played last week, we're winning this game with time to spare, you know?
Yeah.
They said that without saying it, but that's what they meant, or felt like it to me. And you're kind of going, okay, we're not playing well. Do we want to risk injury going into a knockout match next week and keep this going and keep playing, for the possibility of a try, or at worst, throwing an intercept pass and drawing this game, you know?
Yeah, losing 2 points rather than gaining one, like having
Exactly.
a 3-point swing away from you in that sense. Like, yeah.
So you're kind of going, all right, I understand that logic if that's what happened, you know?
Yeah.
If it's, and that's, there's a logic to that way of thinking, not saying I disagree with it or not, you know, I agree with it or not. It's just, it's a way of thinking. Then you have the other side of that coin of, you need that bloody point. It's like,
yeah,
you need it. It's not even a maybe. You need that point. That point is a must. Like that, if Connacht are out of top 8 by 1 point, well,
this is the game we'll look back at and say, you got to push that advantage. Yeah.
You know, because this year, Connacht have got 7 try bonus points and 4 losing bonus points from, from 14 games. There was a high chance of this being them getting over again. You know, if you kind of go in terms of form, there was another try there, and suddenly you are on level points with Bulls, but you're also, in terms of points difference, 7 points closer. Like, don't get me wrong, they are 57 points, we're on plus 10. You know, being 40 points behind instead of 47 points behind, who knows? But I don't, it's one of those things where I don't know. You know, it's my heart says they should have gone for it.
Yeah, but I think we all wanted them to go for it. It's one of these decisions that we will only know in retrospect whether it was the right or wrong call, right? It's similar to like when you go for the line out or you go for the kick and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's like, if they score the try from the line out, then you say, yes, that was the right call. If they screw it and they cough up the ball, well, then they should have taken the points, right? These are only decisions that you can, like, kind of armchair quarterback, as they say, in retrospect. So it's easy for us to say they should have gone for it. I understand if they were feeling it on the pitch of like, we're tired, we're not playing well, let's take our 4 points and be glad we got our 4 points and got our win, given our performance, and like take the learnings out of it and not risk injury, not push ourselves what could be for another 10 minutes to win, to get an extra point from a game we've already won and risk like drawing the game. I can take that as a logic. I hope it does not come back to hurt them.
I think that's the main point. Thing. Yeah. And we won't know. I have a feeling. I've said 50 has been the marker. And I think 50 was achievable for Connacht. It's going to be one of those years where 51 is going to be it's going to be 51, 52. And I think fundamentally a loss earlier on in the years really was going to cost Connacht more so than 1 bonus point against Ospreys.
Yeah.
All you can do is win your matches. And if you think about it, Connacht in the table are the only team on that points level with 7 wins.
Yeah.
Everyone else is in the top 8 has 8 wins. So if you win one more game, you're in the top 8. And that's simple as that. That's simpler math. It's that whole thing of that one ref decision cost us a game that we lost by a score. Because no, that's never the way it goes. If you want to, and that's a way of looking at it so you feel better about yourself.
Yeah.
But there was an opportunity there to make life easier come the South Africa tour, come the Munster match, come the Edinburgh match, and come May. That's like, that opportunity was there for that. And I like you said, I do hope we're not looking back at it going, oh, that was one other point that we could have got,
it was there for the taking,
there for the taking, more so than one of the games we lost and got like whipped off the park.
Yeah, and I think like it's like the table is very tight this year. Like, when you're saying like one extra win puts you in 5th. Yeah, arguably, right? Like, it doesn't just put you in the top 8. Like, it puts you arguably in contention for top 4, and you're fighting for top 4, like in that sense. So it's like it is very tight in that kind of like from third. Like, there's only 7 points between 3rd and 8th at the moment, 8 points between 3rd and 9th. Like, there's not a lot of, like, it's 2 wins, like, you know what I mean? It's not, never mind bonus points. Like, there's not a lot left between the teams in that kind of middle top 8, or like from the middle of the top 8 to the bottom of it. So it's going to be close no matter what. And it is going to come down to, as you say, one of those, one less win or whatever it is towards the end of the season. Hopefully it doesn't come down to this, but I think time will tell, right? Like, again, we will only know in retrospect, and it'll depend on how the South African tour goes, and we'll talk kind of the road to the top 8 maybe at the end.
What's going to happen is Connacht are going to win a Challenge Cup, and they'll use that opportunity to get into the Champions Cup next year as much as any other, you know.
And that's a better route, I would argue, to be honest with you.
Win 4 games. Still have to win 4 games.
Still have to win 4 games, but you get a trophy from it, which, to be honest with you, I think is probably worth it more. In that sense, I would rather see that happen, worst case scenario, than they not make top 8 in the URC. But anyway, I think that will move us on to our bit of Irish for the week. The word I chose this week was a little bit in vain of all of this, which was around opportunity or chance. Hopefully this not being a missed opportunity or missed chance. So over to you, Pádraig. What is chance/opportunity in Irish?
The Irish for opportunity or chance is jesh. You know, it's a nice little word, DEIS it's spelled, and Tunes are being jesh at Connacht and Oud points of bonus all. On Saturday, Connacht had a chance to get that try bonus point. You know, Todd jesh at Connacht, Bochins and Curran Challenge Cup. You know, they have a chance to win the Challenge Cup coming up. It's, you know, opportunity is amazing because in a game of moments like rugby is, you know, you have opportunities to do good and bad across the 80, you know, being Ahmed, being Jeshad, Ruddy Ma, Agus Ultguna, Iglyfa. And, you know, if we look across the rest of the games this weekend, many players took opportunity to do awful things and some very, very good things, you know, and that's what it is. Like, Jesh is a nice, good word, and it's one of those lovely words that you don't have to really learn a lot about Irish for to use and understand. It's just stick it in there, chuck it in. Use your jesh to use the word jesh.
Love it. All right, moving on then to Leinster v Scarlets. So 36-19 to Leinster. Good and bad, I think, is the short answer to this game from Leinster.
I'm going to be honest. I listened to URC TV driving from Kildare to Connemara, listening to this, so I have vague understanding of how this game went. You know, it's because they're not commentating for someone not watching it. Live,
it's not the radio.
It's not. It just really felt that Scarlets came out flying. Like they really
did. So they came out hard. That. Yeah. They deserved that opening try. They came out really, really strong out of the blocks. I think Leinster a little bit on the back foot. Like, maybe weren't expecting it to come out that quick. A lot of returning players for Leinster ahead of the Champions Cup next week. Porter back as well, all that kind of stuff. So a little bit of disruption for Leinster in terms of just players coming back in and kind of getting back into match fitness, but also like club rugby and you know, from the Ireland squad, all that kind of jazz. But no, Scarlets definitely deserved their opening try. Like, the thing that hurt Scarlets here was their discipline, right? Like, 2 yellow cards in very quick succession, down to 13 men. Just, it gave Leinster that foothold into the game. To basically then run riot a little bit. And when I say run riot, I don't mean like did everything right, but like it just gave them the space that they were looking for. And Tommy O'Brien did what Tommy O'Brien has been doing all season, and just like had like ample space to play and took it. And that's really, I think, where again the winning and the losing, when that happened, I was like, okay, that's like Leinster have now got them at arm's length. They're not going to let them back into this game.
The game was kind of won once those tries went over. It felt like it. And it's funny to say, because you kind of highlight their yellows. I'm like another Leinster yellow.
Yes.
I was looking at this, like,
and Deeney again, and him again, and for the same thing as last week.
My problem with that one, and it was, I heard them talk about it as they were, or was I stopped at that point because we had to stop for food. I was wondering, because it was for Leinster, like Scarlets holding someone up and Leinster engaging early, you know.
I think it felt like a tactic from Scarlets.
Yeah, and the thing is, if it's a tactic from the opposition, don't buy into it a second time.
Exactly.
You know, like, it's be smarter. And these are, apart from Leinster and Scarlets, are the worst statistically, the second and third worst statistically disciplined teams in the league.
Yeah.
Leinster have had 15 yellow cards in the URC this year, 1 red. They've conceded 145 penalties, 39 scrum penalties, and 5 line-out offensive. Whereas Scarlets have 12 yellows, 1 red, 165 penalties, 33 scrum penalties, and 8 line offenses. These are not two teams who are very good at discipline. And it kind of led to that. Like, this match felt like it went on forever, as well as at times, and like penalties and the ref having to talk to both teams constantly, just slows teams down. And not like you saw it, so you can really tell me if I'm right or wrong on this. It was a 2-hour game, like I said. It felt like a lot of blood subs were being dealt with on the pitch, like cuts and like things like that. Get them off. There's a reason it's blood subs, lads. Get them off. Like, just get the player off the pitch. What are we doing when we have a non-pulling the piss reason, to make a substitution?
There were genuine blood subs and stuff like that. Yeah.
And it's one of those things where if you've got a player with a cut, pumping blood, they're letting them like spend 5 minutes, strap them up on the pitch instead of going, go to the sideline, get it looked after, bring on your sub.
Yeah, I think there's an element here of like that's on the ref, right? Like, just to not
completely, like
just to be like they're either off the pitch or they're not, like they're either ready to play or they're not, and if they're not, they're off the pitch, kind of thing, right? So like, I think that's just an experience for that ref and letting them step in. I'm not sure how many games she's refed in the URC this season.
She's a fairly decent ref.
She's decent ref, but she's new enough, right?
Yeah, she's done a few games last year as well.
So I think it's just an experience thing, and the team took advantage of it a little bit to be like, well, we'll slow down the pace here and we'll get a rest and we'll get water and we can strategize a little bit. You know what I mean? On both sides, not Leinster or Scarlets. I think both teams took advantage of that in that sense. But yeah, I think like the yellows, look, Deeney getting pinged for the same thing 2 weeks in a row is never good.
Is very
not
annoying.
Learning. It did to me feel like a tactic from Scarlets in terms of they held up the jumper a little bit longer and Leinster just weren't paying attention and got caught with it twice.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like to me, because it happened in relatively quick succession in the game in that sense. Discipline has been a problem. There's no argument there from Leinster. Some really great stuff from Leinster in this game as well, I would say. Like, the attack was singing in a way that we haven't seen a lot of this season. Even outside of down to the 13 men, like I felt the handling errors were reduced. Like, penalties, the count was still there. Passing was better. Like, the handling errors were reduced. Players were finding the soft shoulders. We were getting through. All that kind of stuff was.
And the bit of that is having the main team back. Like having. The internationals come back in, everything just gets that bit better. I thought Osborne sounded like it, like the bits I've seen and watched back. Osborne had a very good game.
He did.
He set up that try of turnover really, really well. That ball got fizzed out from, but the acceleration onto the ball to get into that space was superb. Like, for me, Leinster for the rest of the season should be putting him at 12. Like, I think Henshaw hasn't had that type of impact for a very long time in a Leinster jersey.
Especially now with Keenan back, right?
Yeah,
like I think it makes sense to put him in there. You've also got Jimmy O'Brien as an option for some games still and all that kind of stuff. So like you've got options at 15. He doesn't need to slot back in there at 15. I think the rest of the season, I would agree with you. Put him in at 12 when you can,
That's it. I think also just from the bits I've seen, Tommy O'Brien, once again, the internationals just really showed up. Apart from Doris got a moan at the ref for not like letting him do whatever he wanted in the first half hour, and he gave away like 4 penalties on his own. I think it's the whole thing of like, I'm an international. Like, no, you're not. You're just a player. I'm ref. Go away. He was very much like
he was trying to impose himself. I think he probably like sniffed weakness. He thought maybe because of the way the blood subs and a few other bits and pieces were going that he could just impose himself on the ref, and she wasn't having it, and she was right, to be honest with you.
It was her 15th game. I just had a quick look. She does have a very good way about her. Saw her in the under 20s World Cup a couple of years back, and the way she dealt with the players, like, we had a chat inside. This wasn't what we discussed. Grow up. Let's move on.
Get on with it.
She has this no nonsense way about her, which I do like. It's but no, Leinster were well worth their win. Is the fact that it took Leinster half hour and yellow cards to kind of get going a worry, or is it kind of going, this is a symptom of so many internationals going back? That's the question, really. Yeah,
to me, it's more the latter. I think this is a game like to mirror it a little bit with the Connacht game, like. we kind of talked about Connacht standing off a little bit, or kind of like, not being at the pace, like not being at the pace of the game, but like kind of like being a bit lax in it. And Leinster were the same, but it felt in that way, in that cockiness that Leinster have had every season, where it's like, but we'll still win this game and we'll still get our bonus points. So like you kind of have your moment, and like we'll just wait and like hold you out when we need to hold you out, and take our opportunity when it comes. You're going to give us an opportunity, and when you do, we've got the talent, we've got the players who will exploit it. And that was kind of what it was, right? It's like Tommy O'Brien was always going to find a gap. Joshua Kenny was, JJ Kenny was always going to find a gap. Osborne as well. Like there was always just going to be those moments where these players, like Gibson Park is always going to find a zip of a pass at some point in the game, and Scarlets don't have the team to keep a team like Leinster out for 80 minutes in that way, right? Like, and that's what it comes down to.
I think that's what the new Leinster system kind of is. Like, we're good. You can have the ball all you want. Scarlets had more ball in this match. They offloaded more. They, apart from say they beat more defenders, but Leinster are going to just put you under so much pressure that when you crack, we will make sure it counts. And like the try that Osborne effectively sets up, that comes from a turned over line out. That ability to switch, that counter we talked about last week, is so vital. And if you looked at the stats apart from the scoreline, you'd think
this was a much closer game than it actually was. And like, how, like, obviously Leinster ran into like 2 tries in quick succession and stuff like that. And but like, surely they ran in 4 tries if you were to look at the stats first and then look at the scoreline. But like, to come back to that, maybe just a little bit on the yellows, like, yes, like Leinster got pinged for it from Deeney, and it is silly from him 2 weeks in a row to get kind of pinged for the same thing. It's still a kind of team thing. The 2 yellows from Scarlets are brain dead. You know what I mean? Like pure, like you wouldn't get away with it in like, junior, like, you know what I mean? Like, in like fourths rugby, like he's like, you deliberately knocked on the ball. One is you tried to the second time by basically doing a basketball block and like in front of the ref, and they're like, I just put my arm in the air. It's like, why? No. Why would you put your arm up like this? Nobody in rugby does this unless they're jumping for a ball and it was an open play. So you're like, it's just stuff like that is always going to hurt a team like Scarlets, and against a team like when they're playing a team like Leinster or Glasgow or both, like, somebody who's just been like, it's a gift, right? It's a pure gift. And I think Leinster went into this game going, they're going to give us this. We don't need to fight them. We don't need to be dragged down to their level. What we need to do is contain them enough, put them under the pressure, and they will give us the moments.
Opportunity,
and we will take them. And it is that opportunity thing,
I think that's what Leinster are trying to do this year, is like put teams under so much pressure that they eventually cave. It's more, I think you saw in that opening half hour, and when Scarlets got their other tries, if you can keep the ball off the deck, this is when Leinster do struggle. Like, their scramble's decent, but if you can go through enough kind of contact scenarios without the ball without turning into a ruck, and Leinster do struggle there, and that's kind of where those opportunities came from for Scarlets. And there are better teams than Scarlets who will make Leinster pay for that type of stuff.
Yeah, to date myself with a very old Simpsons meme of when Homer was boxing and he was boxing all the bums and they were getting tired, and then he fights Mike Tyson, who won't get tired. That's what this feels like at the moment for Leinster, for me, in terms of we will get to semi-final stage or somewhere around there against a very good team who are not going to get tired, who are not going to cough up those mistakes, who are going to keep their heads and are going to also punish our mistakes. And that game plan will run out, right? Now, let's see what actually happens when we get in there. Like, I think we are starting to see a little bit better form from Leinster, certainly on attack, right? Like those handling errors and stuff like that are starting to disappear. They're starting to find each other a bit more. I think, the likes of Tommy O'Brien, likes Jamie Osborne, have really benefited from a good Six Nations as well. So it's,
and this run in, when you have the internationals back for the rest of the season, there's nothing else to play for up until the summer. There's no eye on the lines at this stage. They might not even been going doing this Nations Championship because they won't be flying to the other side of the world. There's literally the only thing to play for are 2 trophies, and them getting all zoned in and clocked in is important. Even Leo post-match is like, we're not where we want to be, and And it's the first time I remember that someone from Leinster camp have actually come out and said, no, we're not where we want to be. You know, it's not kind of, oh, we're nearly there. It's like, no, we're well off, you know, and they know it themselves. And it's nice to hear them say it out loud, you know.
That I think at this stage of this season, it would be silly not to, right? Like, you know, it would be crazy for them to be like, oh no, like, you know, we got the win, we got the bonus point, you know, yeah, there was mistakes, but like, we'll work on those. No, like Leinster are not performing. Like, it's interesting to me. Like, I've talked to some Leinster fans in the last couple of weeks who have tickets booked to Bilbao, like flights. I'm like, why? We're not going based on current form.
I know Connacht fans who have tickets to Bilbao because European Cups are just fun to go to.
Leinster fans do not travel to European Cups for fun. They travel to Leinster because Leinster fans are there. Like, they expect Leinster. Like, I'm talking to these people because they think Leinster are going to be in the final. Like, I've booked a thing separately for that weekend. I'm not going because I booked a thing with my family because I'm like, well, we're not getting there based on current performance. I don't see us getting to a final in that sense. Like, but a lot of Leinster fans still have
to do this podcast, and the only match I have to talk about is Leinster. Like, do you know how depressing that would be for me? You know,
it'll be fine. It'll be okay. I promise. Anyway, I think, look, this is very much a performance of, like, Leinster did what they needed to do. I don't think there's any major warning signs in what we saw. The discipline continues to be it continues to be an issue for Leinster. They will need to fix that for the knockout stages to avoid like some of the better teams. Scarlets just are not at the races this season, plain and simple. Like, they're playing for pride anyway at this point, right? There's no hope of them getting top 8.
Yeah.
You know, like, any of their remaining games really are just for pride more so than anything else at this point. I don't think there's much more to say about this game other than that.
Before we move on to the other two matches, we'll have a break there. Do not forget to follow me everywhere on social media. That is 2ND, not the word second, for the second row, and hit that subscribe button on whatever podcast platform you're on and on YouTube. Get those comments coming in. Talk to us. Ask questions. Tell us why you're wrong. Be annoyed at us. It's great. It's great fun. And that all helps this podcast to grow and more people to hear about us. So keep that stuff up, and thank you everyone who's doing it so far. And thanks for all the nice positive feedback we've got from mainly our friends and family. But, you know, it's
we still appreciate it. Still counts,
you know,
and we appreciate it.
All right. So at altitude, Munster, 31, Bulls 34. They which wouldn't be hard, played a lot better than last week.
No, I mean, look, low bar, right? Like, it was a very, very low bar. Myself and Jason watched the majority of this game together, which is always fun with Jason to watch a Munster game. So Munster should have won this game, is my takeaway.
Yes, but I have my reason for it, and that's mainly because Bulls are the stupidest team ever to play rugby.
Yeah, so I have
my main one.
I have two reasons for it. One of them is that, right? So first of all, I'll go with that one to start with. Bulls demolished Munster in scrum and maul, and seemed not interested in doing that any more times than Munster wanted to do it. Absolutely wild, given the complete and utter playtime they were getting at both scrum and maul, that they did not do it every 6 seconds on the pitch. Do not understand why.
Like, why wasn't Pollard just kicking?
Drop it on purpose. Knock it on purpose. Let them put it in. You're gonna win it. Like, it didn't matter. It's
really weird because I have the exact same thing. Bulls are stupid and didn't set up a game plan to make use of their weapon, which was their scrum and maul. The problem is, every time they kick the ball off the pitch to try and do something, Munster's set piece launch moves were pretty good. So it was this whole thing. Bulls couldn't kick the ball off the pitch without winning it back. You know, they needed the penalty to kind of build off.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. But their contestables, no one ever contested, and they just gave Munster far too much free rein. I'm like,
it was a strange game plan.
I couldn't understand it. I think followers of the Bulls are saying the same things. Like, you know, they've noticed it. Like, so and it's one of those things where Bulls won this game. Munster, are you saying the other reason missed kicks? Please don't say the other reason is missed kicks.
The other reason is missed kicks.
Right?
And
it is 4 points, and that is the game.
It's 50% kicking percentage, right? Like that. Like, he had 6 kicks, he kicked 3 of them. They lost by 3 points, right? So it's a draw. Like two kicks, 2 of those 3 that he missed, you win the game. Be it the drop goal or be it the 2 conversions. So like just improve the kicking to 80%, not to 100%. Munster have won that game. Yeah. No other action. And fair or unfair, that is what it comes down to. And again, I'm not trying to be overly harsh, and this isn't about
because Crowley had a really good game.
Like, but he had a really good game. He needs to, like, for Munster to like win these tight games, he needs to improve his place kicking, and his kicking percentage is just too low. And like this is a game they could have won on that kicking percentage alone. Never mind all the other stuff. Like there was other opportunities to win this game for them as well. Their handling at times was atrocious, like the knock-ons and the missed passes.
Yeah.
That
some
just
of them
like
were just
they're
poor.
just awful, very poor. That just like cost them momentum. Like they great go forward. They had overlaps. They had all sorts of stuff, and then just simple knock-ons, or just like there was one where it literally I think bounced off Lockman's shoulder. Yeah. You know, and stuff like that. You're just like literally from the passer next to him. Like it was not really basic stuff that like they need to cut out of their game in these tight games that they could have won.
And there was another one that was like cut out pass that went to someone's knees. You know, it was like all this type of stuff and like bundled in, like in too easy to get into touch. Yeah. And you're right, they had a lot more impetus, and they were playing. Unlike the Bulls, they were playing in the right areas. Like they were able to. Yeah. Crowley was able to put them in the right places to play and to create chances. And I still
think his kicking from hand, like his maybe not his kicking from hand, but his finding touch is still off for me as well, right? There
was a few times they missed touch once.
He missed. He
was a bit shorter than it could have been.
Yeah, so I think for me, it's a couple of things, right? And I feel it's a confidence thing more than anything else. He had a couple of things like earlier in the year, and like even with Ireland, stuff like that, where like he kicked it dead by mistake, and you know, this kind of stuff. He's done that a few times, and I think his confidence in his ability to find touch at the range he's got is kind of waned a bit. So he either plays it very safe and he kicks very short, or he kind of over eggs it and then he doesn't find touch at all, right? And he like it's just something again of just like he just needs to get his confidence back on that and really understand the limitation of his own kick. Like I think he'll get there with it, but it's a weapon that I think he'll develop, but he needs to do it soon. Would be my kind of feeling.
Yeah, like I don't think, and from because there's 2 points of view on that. Like from Munster's point of view, Munster need him to do all that stuff better, you know, and to get them over some of the lines that, you know, are put in better positions on top of what he is doing well off picking good passes and running good lines himself and good little dinks, you know, like he had his variation play was really, really good. I know where you're coming from, but that I think returning from Ireland into a Munster setup that isn't doing well is like there's more than just his own previous issues. There was a general malaise he's walking into, and that has to impact the player because his line kicking is much better for Ireland than it is for Munster. You know, like that side of it, like all those things are better for Ireland than they are for Munster. And it's not
he's a better pack in front of him and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
and it's not that he's playing up. I think it's more he's an environment that's kind of going, oh no, like this is good. You know, like and that feeling of this is fine. You know, this is all good. Everything we want to do is going to work because, you know, it's going to work type of thing. But I understand why these things might be a bit worse in Munster, but I don't think it's one of those ones where it's not going to stop him being the Irish 10 in the near future. It's just going to hold Munster back from getting over the line in some of the more tighter games.
No, like, and I suppose my frustration comes in with that. I think he is like, and we've seen him for Ireland be better, right? Like, so he like the capability is there. This isn't a question of capability from my point of view at all. It's an execution problem,
or it's a consistency problem.
And consistency maybe is the word there, right? Like, I think I'd maybe contest that his goal kicking for Ireland is not where it needs to be either for test level rugby. He's not up in the 80%. Kind of territory that I think he needs to be in to be a starting 10 for a top country, in my view, right? Like, again, look, you know, I am genuinely not trying to turn this into a Sam versus Jack thing, but you know, Sam gets lambasted for his tackling, not a primary thing you expect a 10 to do. Jack does not get lambasted for his kicking, the primary thing we expect a 10 to do in Ireland, right? And like, I would argue his kicking is the weakest part of his game.
I know I get that. It's more in the context of this game.
I don't think it's like outside of the place kicks. I don't think his kicking from hand was bad in this game, to be clear, right? I think his place kicks percentage is the point that I'm making here. I think, as you say, his pass selection, his running lines, his taking it up to the line, his defensive work, all really good in this game. I thought he played really well. I thought he led in the way. Like we've talked a lot about Munster, a different team,
and bringing that the two of them brought tempo and pace.
Munster are just a better team when they're on the pitch,
and everyone fed off that. Like literally, it's one of those things where Hearn looked like the international again. You know,
he did.
He genuinely looked a player above everyone. Like I know he's gigantic and tall, but he did look like a player above.
He did.
Most like the Munster line. I said it was very good. They launched really well off it. Their attack tended to do well off it. It's one of those games where they missed Farrell. I just think they missed Farrell at 13. It was really so important. I would agree with that.
I think as well the disruption, right? Like Gavin Coombs is out before the game, and Adogbo has to come onto the bench, and then they have a couple of HIAs kind of early in the game. Like quite a lot of disruption early on. Where I think Munster could rue this as a loss is like we said, like Bulls gifted them the opportunity of winning this game by not going after them at scrum time and not going after them in the maul and stuff,
by tactically not making the team,
just not exploiting their strength and like as it is to Munster's weakness in that sense. Not that it was that Munster were specifically weak in that area, it's just Bulls are so strong in that area, and Bulls essentially relied on moments of brilliance from Pollard and Papier throughout the game, and they got enough of those to win the game, right? Like that was basically what happened, but only barely, and they were lucky to come out with the win. Munster got 2 bonus points, as like the losing bonus point and the try bonus, which they will probably desperately need, but like a win here would have been huge for Munster.
Momentum wise, going into like an away game in the Challenge Cup, and I think how Munster take on the Challenge Cup is actually it'll be quite interesting, because if they go full bore on it, and which I think they have to, I don't think any team can rule out an opportunity to get into the Champions Cup next year, from other provinces. So I think Ulster, Munster and Connacht from the Irish POV have to really go after that competition. And this
it's also silverware.
Yeah, silverware just gets people going. I think this is the type of game. I think there was enough in this game that if you put Tyke Byrne into that 15, maybe get Farrell back. I think the HIAs will hurt them on the wings next week a small bit.
Yeah.
But there's enough there if they can avoid scrums against Exeter in general, because I think this scrum is just flawed. Alan Toa got lifted more than once. They got collapsed so many times. They were getting beaten the scrum a few different ways, and to the point where I wrote down going, the control Munster had on their own put into the scrum while being wheeled backward was very impressive. The fact they were able to control the ball, get it out, and play off it on their own ball was impressive. Genuinely it was. They never once got turned over at scrum time. They weren't giving away penalties on their own ball because they're like, we're not dealing with this. In and out. Come on, let's go. So they were smart. They were able to counter it to a degree on their own put in. Bulls just owned it on theirs. But I think if they get through next weekend, I will go through the brackets within that when we're looking into next week. But I think there was enough here for them that they kind of go, if we can perform to this level and pray to Jesus, novena, whatever God you believe in, that Crowley doesn't and Casey can stay injury free between now and the end of the season. We can do something, and we'll move into this is my way of moving into Ulster, and I'm going in a Munster without their number 110 is a shadow of their team. Ulster without Jack Murphy look like a shadow of it, of themselves, and that opening half. So sorry, this is my swinging into Ulster, because I think unless you've got anything else to say about Munster.
No. I'm going to have pissed off enough Munster fans there now.
And so this is how I'm going to swing into Munster. Against Zebre, there's a very simple way of playing the game against Zebre to make sure you can generally win with a bit of ease, and that's playing a good territory-based game, frustrate the hell out of them, and after 15, if you can be 14 points up after 20 minutes, their discipline will go. Ulster did everything in their power to keep Zebre in this match for as long as possible, all the way through. And it was, even the red card should have put Zebre out of the competition in this game, and it didn't. And don't get me wrong, it was a despicable red card. Like,
stupid stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just very blatant and silly. Like, just to, you know what I mean? He's caught up in a tackle, putting his hand up in the face, his fingers in the eyes. It's just, there's no debate on it. Like,
yeah. And yet Zebre still looked like the team control for most of the half.
Yeah, fair.
There was elements of the Ospreys match in Ulster's attack. That kind of, they were doing enough in times and then going, the last pass would be to the touchline or forward or knocked on. But the territory thing was the issue. They just kept letting Zebre play in the Ulster half far too much. They're just going, play from your own half, please. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and as you say, I think the Jack Murphy gap there was evident from that point of view. Like, we've talked about it, right? Like, Ulster have a problem on the road. Like, in terms of performances this season, they're not doing well on the road. I'd probably maybe see it a little bit more generously for Ulster than you're describing. Where
no, because I feel
they just did enough as well. You know what I mean? It was just sort of like, we'll win this game. Like, to your point, Zebre will give us opportunities, a little bit like Leinster. It was like, they'll give us opportunities, we'll take those opportunities. Okay, they've gone down to 13 or gone down to 14. We'll just let them tire themselves out, and then we'll run in our tries.
And the bench came on and kind of gave them that. Like, Augustus came on, was incredible. I think when the bench came on, even Cock, who was having a good first half, played even better. I thought he was good at the break.
I thought Herring was improved on last week. Like, again, he set up that. Like, he was the kind of final pass for the first try, peeled off the maul for the second try and stuff like that. Like, but I just thought in general he stepped up a bit more than last week and stuff like that, and had much more kind of impact on the game.
Yeah, definitely. I think what Ulster will be happy about was their defensive effort across the game, because they did have to do a lot of defending. I know against 14 at times. They'll be happy with the impact of the bench, especially Angus Bell and Augustus, who came on.
Yeah,
like, maybe not a Bell in the scrum, because the Zebre scrum really at times looked like it had Ulster in real bother. But their ability, just like you said, to kind of to win the game and get the bonus point, which never looked in doubt, but it's one of those games where they could have won with it. They could have
had a one at halftime.
Yes, but also there was one of those games where they could have won at halftime, but Zebre could have losing bonus point and a try bonus point out of it, because it's like, oh, we'll score one, now you can attack and we're going to stop you. But like, some of the attack could have ended the other way, because they just gave Zebre far too much in that side of it. But I think it was really just missing Murphy was the main one for me, from what was a good, decent performance, but one that, once again, on the road, looking to Europe, you're kind of going, I know they're home next, but where they're getting these kind of, this is the performance we can kind of really build off, they haven't had that in a few weeks now.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit of like, they needed, I think, a bit of a reset after last week, right? Like, they kind of needed that after they kind of lost to Connacht, where they didn't look good. Like, Connacht looked the better team. Just sort of getting the win, even if it's dirty, even if it's not playing well, but just getting that 5 points away from home, getting back into a winning mindset. Like, okay, we're home again next week. It's, Europe. I think my take on that a little bit is just, they will, to a certain degree, draw a little bit of a line under this. And I would suspect, like, they'll review it, they'll do the normal thing and be like, okay, where do we need to improve? But I think they will more just take it as, okay, we went to Zebre, we got 5 points. That's all you can do in Zebre. Off we
move
go.
On. Yeah.
Move on. Like, it's hard to a certain degree, like, we can criticize them, obviously, or we can kind of say, like, the performance isn't there. Sometimes you just could win bad. Like, you know what I mean? Just do it and win bad is matters as much, right? The 5 points count the same.
It's kind of more for their end of season ambitions. Is is the kind of the odd form they've been carrying the last while gonna bite them in the arse, and that's
and
really
the playing away. I think that the one for me there is like the playing away is the thing that could come back to bite them in the ass, because like they're currently sitting in third, so it like if they can maintain that,
finals, they will be away at some point.
Yeah, so it's kind of like if they drop down any further, if they, I'm sure based on the performance, they're looking to go far in the playoffs of either or probably both tournaments, right? They're going to be away in both of them because they also like what they were. Where did they rank in Challenge Cup? It was pretty low as well, right? No, they're third, so they've got it's similar. So they've got a few opportunities for home games there, but I think that's probably where they'll look at it and be like, we need to just improve our away process there, and how they kind of get ready for away games, because if they want to go deep in the knockouts, they're likely to be playing away, and that's going to be the challenge.
So in Europe, because we'll go to Europe anyway, in Europe, the only way I think they'll be playing away is if Benetton make it to the semi-finals on their side.
Yeah.
So if anyone on that other side make it that far, they're all going to Ravenhill, because the only person higher ranked than Ulster are Benetton. So that's going to be their
that's the benefit to them there.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it goes. And
at the moment it stands in the URC, it's Glasgow or Stormers, right? Like that's so semi they may end up having to go away for, but it'll depend.
Yeah, at the moment, if everyone won all their games and the top four were the semi-finalists, Leinster are going to Glasgow and Ulster are going to Stormers. That's. I know it sounds really weird, but if you knew Stormers are finishing second and you were finishing third, and like not scoring a bonus point, would that Leinster pop up third? Would you prefer go to Glasgow or to Stormers?
Look, it's a hell of a lot shorter flight from Belfast to Glasgow than it is down to South Africa, right? So even just that alone, like, would be a factor. I don't think that's how teams look at it, and stuff like that. But
they shouldn't, like, win your games, win as well as possible,
because you never know what's going to happen in the other games anyway, and all that kind of stuff. But I think, look, I'm not overly critical of Ulster in this game. I think they did enough to win. They struggled to get that attacking edge a lot of the game. I'd agree with you there, even when they're with the man advantage and stuff like that. But 5 points away is 5 points away. They stay in third or a point ahead of Leinster. Could be important come the kind of end in the playoffs. So, yeah, I don't have much more to say about the game than that. I don't think there's too much to read into it outside of that.
And it's the only one of the matches that I got wrong in my prediction. I just felt Zebre had something in them because Ulster away from home. And so I'm like, why Zebre?
Connacht didn't prove me right. I said they were going to get the bonus point at home this week, and I was proven wrong.
I was just hoping for the win. The win. It's now 11 points needed for the top 50 to get 50 points and possibly top 8 for Connacht. Yeah. Some math makes it 51 for the first time, which would be really annoying for them. But I think it's there. But in all fairness, it's Europe next week, and I think that's another avenue, another opportunity to get into the Champions Cup, and more importantly, win silverware. Trophies help build confidence in what a program's doing. And apparently, which delights many people, Sharks are taking this seriously. They're sending up a strong team next week.
Fun.
Why? Why? Focus on the URC.
Yeah, you could. You're doing well in the URC, right? Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah. Look, I understand why, because they're not in contention in the URC, right? Like, this is their route into Champions Cup. Like, there's 6 points off 8th at the moment. I don't see them making top 8 based on that at the minute. I think the battle for the kind of spots for the top 8 now really are between Cardiff, Munster, Bulls, Connacht. Like, there's kind of 4 or 5 teams vying for 3 spots would be my kind of takeaway at the minute.
It's more, I think Sharks Champions Cup is through the Challenge Cup next year. Yeah. I think they have too much to make up for with 32 points on the table,
Yeah. So they're going to prioritize
go hard against Connacht next week, and Friday night lights as well, which would be really good.
Yeah.
Sharks traveling up might benefit Connacht as well. It's
a lot of travel for them, right? Like, they're going to have to fly probably two and a half flights, 2-3 flights, like fly to Dublin, drive, fly to Shannon, drive, all that kind of, you know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of travel for them to get to Galway. in that sense, even compared to getting to Dublin or something like that. Like it's just that little bit more effort for them, I would say. So let's see. They haven't been a good team on the road either. So
no,
it's a big game for Connacht at home. Connacht, as I say, are 5 from 5. If they can go 6 from 6, like this is all the benefits here. The big thing in general for me here, if we move on to the knockouts, maybe look at the kind of previews, as we're kind of talking about the other provinces. So like, if we look at the side of the draw that Ulster and Munster are on, right? I think looking at it here, Munster have the harder first round of this in terms of Exeter. Like Exeter probably outside of like Ulster, probably the toughest team on that side of the draw. And especially the fact that they go away to Exeter is going to be a really big challenge for them.
Sandy Park will be hard. It doesn't matter how Exeter go in the Premiership, just them being away from home. Like away knockout matches are hard for a reason, I don't think
Munster have probably the best pedigree in the world for away European games, right? Like, in terms of just like pulling out a performance in a tough away game that they're not expected to win. So they will, I think, need to pull on that a little bit. I think the performance this week will buoy them a good bit.
It should give them confidence, for sure. It'll give them confidence going into it. Tyke Byrne coming back will then
push them further again.
Push them further up again. Yeah. I do see more than likely Munster making the semi-finals if they kind of commit to this. Benetton might be a bit of an asking over in Treviso if that's the other side of the quarterfinal, for them. But
what would be interesting to me here, and like what's the big potential benefit to Munster here, and I'll focus on Munster maybe a little bit on this one. If they get to a semi-final, there's the prospect of a semi-final against La Rochelle in Thomond, which will be a big game. Rog coming back to Thomond and all that kind of stuff will be like they may even play it in Cork, you know what I mean, to really sell it out and stuff like that and get the extra money in. But it'll just be a big game, right? Like La Rochelle occupy a lot of the mind of Ireland because of the Rog connection, and obviously Munster in particular.
I'm not sure,
but I don't know if they'll be in the contention.
I don't think La Rochelle make it there with the injury to Will Skelton has come out and Botti is injured. It's just really bad time for them. I think they'll have enough to beat the Newcastle, to
beat Bulls,
But Ulster then in a couple of weeks' time,
in Ravenhill
next week in Ravenhill, full of internationals, everyone back from the Cotton Wool, and they're wrapped up in this week who didn't play. I think a full strength Ulster at the moment, and given how La Rochelle are doing in the top 14, that I think that's in itself is a great game, a spicy watch. And then but I think personally it will be interesting because Ulster and Munster will be a second time possibly in a space of 3 weeks playing each other, once in a semi-final, once in the URC, whichever one's later is going to have pure bust-ups. It's going to be box office, I see that as a bit of potential path. I wouldn't put it past Benetton winning either, have all their Italian internationals back. They're on a bit of a run of form. They win a match. If they beat Cardiff, suddenly they're now won 3 on the trot. I think in all competitions, it just gives them belief.
So it's also their only, again, I think
they have more to gain from winning.
Exactly, right? And I think, and this is why I'm not so quick to write off La Rochelle for a couple of reasons, because this is their only shot at silverware this year, really. Like, they're out of it in the top 14. They're 9th at the moment. They're currently not going to make Champions Cup next year. So this would be their route. So I could see, and like Rog has such a pedigree of Europe, and he has built La Rochelle into a club that cares about Europe because of that, in a way that a lot of French clubs don't, outside of, Toulouse and kind of Clermont and Racing maybe a little bit. It's something where I could see them pulling out some performances. I agree with you on the injury front. Let's see. But I think Ulster going to beat Ospreys, right? We don't see a world where Ospreys beat Ulster next week.
No.
Yeah.
To be honest, I just don't. And the problem is that's the easier side of the draw. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
It's so annoying because Connacht are, if they get past Sharks, which is no mean feat, will have to then face Montpellier or Po, I guess. And like Montpellier, 5th in the top 14, it is Po they're against. Isn't it? Have I got that wrong? Those Perpignan. No. Who are they against? How have I got that wrong? I'm trying to, and they're literally looking at, USAP. I thought that is
Perpignan.
Perpignan, yeah. Like in Perpignan, they'll be fighting for their survival. So like if Perpignan,
they won't send anybody.
Yeah, who wants this less in the Montpellier Perpignan match is then kind of going to be backed up with, well, we've now used all our S bars. We can go heavy now. We're in a quarterfinal. That is what I see. And then on the other end, you have, Stade Francais coming up, who are more likely going to get past Dragons and going to get past.
Yeah, Zebre will win their game most likely as well. So they get past Zebre. So everyone is an easy route, arguably, bar Connacht.
Which is, just the great way. And if Connacht get to a final through that, they should win. They shouldn't for any team.
Assuming it's not like by injuries and just exhaustion that got them there and they're out on their feet at that stage. But yeah, I agree with you. Look, I think it'll be interesting to see how Sharks travel up, right? I think if they get past Sharks, they get to a semi, right? Because I think
that should give confidence to go again.
Yeah, and I think Montpellier won't care, right? They're in 5th at the moment. They're going to be fighting to get into 4th and stuff like that. Maybe very quickly on like the top 14, like Toulouse are running away with it, right? Like they're from way out in front, but 2nd to like 7th in the top 14 is incredibly competitive right now. There's only like 6-7 points between them. It's a bit like the URC. So like they're in that fight and they will 100% prioritize that fight. Perpignan are fighting for survival. So they will also prioritize that fight. Now they're a good bit ahead of Montauban. Like they're way down. Like they're just, like, you don't even want to know how bad they're doing. They've won one game.
They're in the playoff spot. They're going to have a playoff for them. Perpignan will play off for their survival. They're in that spot. The thing is about French teams in the Challenge Cup is they don't care about it until the knockouts. And so it's true. Oh, I have access to silverware, and then they do care about it, and that tends to be the way in the Champions Cup for some of the French teams has been. Like the only teams now who genuinely care about the Champions Cup in French terms are like Bordeaux, Toulouse, and La Rochelle. Everyone else, like, are we in the knockouts? Yeah. We'll start caring now, the group games don't matter to them until
Toulon as well historically, but that's more historically.
But only tends to come from, we've got this far, we can go again, And like looking at the run for Leinster before we just wrap this up, they're beating Edinburgh next weekend, to be honest.
Leinster have the easiest run in if they get to a final of any team in the Champions Cup, right? I think it's fair to say, like, it is the easiest route if they get there.
Do you think they're going to meet Glasgow in a semi-final and we're going to have like punch up in the first 2 minutes? That's
like, it's a tough one to say, right? Because again, right, like Toulon are in there. Toulon are not in a playoff spot in France, so they will care about this. They have a great pedigree in Europe. Like, I think they'll like Toulon the Stormers. Who knows? Will come through that. Like Glasgow have to beat the Bulls first. Now at home, but still they've got to beat the Bulls. The reward for that is either Toulon or Stormers, neither of which will be easy.
No.
Now they'll get them both at home, but still won't be easy either way. They'll batter them up. Leinster, on the other hand, have Edinburgh this week, who like are poor, and then assuming they win this week, it's Quins or Sale Sharks. Both teams who are not really, I would say, performing this year in the Prem. They're not really at it. I would say I don't expect to see much out of them. I don't know what your thoughts on them are. So, like, I think Leinster have an easy route to a semi.
Yeah.
And then I think will fall at the semi, right? I think Glasgow or Toulon Stormers, I think might end up being too much. Now, the only thing is Leinster, the only avenue that they don't have a home semi is if Glasgow get there. Right? So, like, that's the only time they're going away for the semi-final.
Yeah, I don't know. I find you can't tell the Prem what's going on in it. You know, like 10 teams actually too hard to find what like a rhythm of anything, to be honest.
Yeah.
And the fact that Harlequins have only won 3 games this season,
and Sale have only won 3 as well. You
know, you're talking about two teams that aren't doing very well, and
no,
but they have nothing to fear in the Prem, so they might just go.
My main thing with I expect Sharks to win that game, I suppose, to start with, right? Like Quins have coughed up a huge amount of points, in the Prem this year.
I just don't think this is going to be. It's the round of 16 is actually the worst thing that could happen this year for some of these. When you look at the draw, because the Prem teams, you almost want to skip someone like to toss a coin. They don't want this game. They really don't. Bath and Saracens don't want this game. Bristol do, because they love a big game. Leicester Tigers will, and the Saints will. Weirdly, everyone on the other side of the draw will be invested. It's this Harlequins and Sale Sharks don't care. Like they'll care in the game because the game's the game, but they won't care overall big picture. If they win, they win. It's another match. If they lose, well, we weren't really going to win it anyway.
Yeah, and like the question for me on the, like, say, on the Bulls and the Stormers is like, do they send up big teams? Like Bulls are in a fight for 8th in the URC. Do they prioritize that? Stormers are in second pretty comfortably, I would say, in second. They can kind of hold that if they win their games. But they're certainly top 4, in that sense at the moment. So I could see them prioritizing the URC and winning that. I think they don't, they can get a home final for the URC. They can't get a home game for Champions Cup, even if they get there, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, never mind their rankings. It has to be played in Europe. Now, I'm assuming if Bulls Stormers ends up being the quarterfinal, they can play that in South Africa. But, there's no option for them to, like, they have to travel a lot. So I could see them just sending up weak teams and giving Glasgow and Toulon kind of easy routes, maybe. It's hard to say.
And then they get an extra week off for themselves. And, if they playing the long we in the URC, and the South African teams have said as much, they care about the URC more because we, us too, as Irish fans, Welsh fans, Scottish fans, maybe not Welsh fans, Scottish fans and Italian fans have bought into their presence. And bought into the teams, and have bought into them. The organization of the URC has bought into them. Everything about the Champions Cup, especially from the English, and less so from the French. But they and the organization to a degree have gone, why are we involved with these teams? And
you're a bother. Why are you here? Yeah. We're not traveling to South Africa to play you guys. Absolutely not. You come up to us as European rugby.
So that's kind of where I'm just looking at that from, their competition is the URC. This is a sideshow,
Curry Cup and URC. That's what they're interested in.
And unless Europe gave them that bit of respect, that's not going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree. So I think Leinster have an easy route in. They should get past Edinburgh this week without too much hassle. Sale, I think, will be the likely opponent in the quarterfinal, rather than Quins. Who knows? I don't expect either of those teams. Like, we've said this before about the Premiership teams. Big challenge with them is like they just don't defend in the Prem. So when they come up against some of the European teams, the French teams or the URC teams that actually like put it up to them in a defense, they struggle massively because they're just used to a lot more league style rugby nearly at this stage.
So from an Irish point of view, we'll start Leinster because we're there. Leinster are going to be in the quarterfinal next week. And we won't even talk about that until what's going to happen after that. Till next week, we had just done it for like 5 minutes, if not longer. Ulster are going to be in a quarterfinal next week. Munster will be in a quarterfinal, and
I'm not convinced by the Munster one.
Okay, I'll say Munster. I think Munster will find that thing, that emotional thing, that they have, and they will find it if they have performed even remotely as well as they did against.
Yeah, I hope they do. I hope. My fear of them not finding it is because it's the Challenge Cup and not the Champions Cup.
Yeah.
I hope they do not have that and that they actually go and play. That's my hope, and that the fans travel as they always do and all that kind of stuff.
And I think a tight turnaround for Sharks to get up from South Africa for Friday night match should help Connacht win, and then I'm going to say Connacht going to win the quarterfinal. We've won 5 in a row. There's spirit in that group. You bring back Cian Prendergast, Sean Jansen, and then with Seamus Harry-Langton back from injury, that back row with Paul Boyle looks like really competitive. Joe Joyce back in maybe with one of the Murray brothers. That's solid. It's all about the pack. I'm not even going to talk about the back line. That's all about the pack, because that Shark scrum is scary, and that genuinely scary. Yeah. And what I've seen them do to teams, if you saw it underage, the ref would make all scrums go uncontested for for being worried
safety
about
reasons.
Safety reasons, But I'm going to go with a Connacht win and be pessimistically positive next week.
So we're going clean sweep for the Irish provinces in Europe.
Sure, why not? Stranger things have happened.
Exactly. But I think it's fair, right? I think they all have the ability to win. I think they're all, even though Munster lost this week, I think they'll still take a lot of the positive kind of upward trend from the week before. Yeah. Clydeburn coming back will give it to them. I think otherwise all the other provinces, they're coming off the back of wins, even if they're not like all free-flowing wins, but they'll have all their players back. Irish clubs love European rugby, so we tend to get up for it. So I think let's go for it. Irish clubs all the way into the quarterfinals.
Perfect. So until next week, thank you everyone for listening. We will be back to talk about those 4 games. If you want to get involved, if you want our opinions, please do get in touch. So until next time, goodbye and thank you very much for listening.
Bye-bye.